Helping people understand history and how it keeps repeating itself. The brainwashing of people, we're here to unhypnotize. Open your eyes and mind. See how you can be the change. Topics include MKO to Plato, or allegory of the cave. Montauk Project, Mandela effect, the problem with using labels, and other topics that are considered conspiracy theories.
Hello, and welcome to Back to Light. Tonight is about the overlooked patterns quietly shaping how we see the world. What if the greatest deception isn't the lie itself, but our willingness to believe it without question? We question the mainstream. We question governments. We question big institutions. But how often do we pause and question the voices we actually like? The ones that confirm what we already feel. This is the quiet power of truth bias. Our natural tendency to accept information as true simply because it sounds confident, gets repeated, and comes from someone we trust or want to believe. Tonight, we're going to explore this honestly, not to become cynical, but to become a little sharper and more self-aware. Because the real danger isn't just being lied to, it's how easily we hand over our own discernment. And now I present Article 13. Truth bias is the default setting of the human mind. It is the tendency to accept what is seen, written, or spoken as true, even in the absence of evidence, or sometimes despite evidence to the contrary. At its foundation, it reflects a social instinct that most people are not expecting to be lied to in every interaction, so belief becomes the path of least resistance. Without the baseline trust, cooperation would fracture. Communities, relationships, and institutions rely on shared assumption of honesty to function at all. However, what unites can also be used to control. Truth bias often runs parallel to authority bias, where statements are granted because of who delivers them. A person in a position of perceived expertise, whether a news anchor, a teacher, a medical expert, a government official, an influencer, or a trusted voice within a movement, can bypass scrutiny simply by occupying that role. The information is not questioned for its integrity, only accepted for its source. Truth bias begins to intersect with confirmation bias, when individuals are more likely to accept information that aligns with their existing worldview while dismissing or overlooking information that contradicts it. Belief becomes selective, shaped less by truth and more by alignment with existing personal perspectives. In this way, truth bias does not operate in isolation. It is reinforced by the emotional comfort of feeling right and the psychological discomfort of facing inconsistencies. This pattern plays out across multiple domains. In the media, repetition alone can turn narratives into accepted reality, even when the key details are later revised or quietly withdrawn. In financial scams, Authoritative tone and professional presentation often replace verification, resulting in significant loss. In legal settings, confident testimonial can outweigh accuracy, despite known limits of human memory. Within alternative news spaces, the pattern often intensifies. Some public figures openly acknowledge that they may introduce disinformation and misinformation at times, framing it as strategic or necessary. Yet, audiences continue to accept subsequent statements as truth without discernment. This demonstrates the persistence of truth bias even when the possibility of deception has been explicitly stated. The label of truther or insider becomes a form of authority in itself, insulating claims from scrutiny. The implications of truth bias are significant. This bias can lead individuals to adopt false beliefs, spread unverified information, and sometimes make serious accusations based solely on the claims of others. As a result, personal accountability may weaken, as individuals tend to trust the perceived credibility of the speaker rather than verifying the information themselves. This reliance reduces critical thinking and reinforces dependence on external sources for understanding reality. Overcoming truth bias does not mean completely abandoning trust. Rather, it requires us to recalibrate it. Critical thinking becomes essential in this process. This involves asking what evidence supports a claim, identifying any missing information, and considering alternative explanations. We must recognize that confidence in a statement is not the same as proof. Repetition does not validate a claim, and authority does not guarantee immunity from error or deception. The more difficult question is not whether others are telling the truth, but whether we are willing to challenge what we have already accepted. Do you assume something is true because it aligns with your beliefs, or because it has been thoroughly examined? When a trusted voice contradicts itself, do you reassess, or do you rationalize? Are you seeking truth, or are you seeking confirmation? Most confronting of all, in sharing information that has not been critically analyzed, are you unknowingly participating in the very cycle of misinformation you claim to resist?
Most communication by most people is honest most of the time. This is usually really shocking for people, but it's really well validated. Most of the time when we're talking to people that we know, you're not being lied to. And if you think about today and the way you lied today, you probably would have a hard time thinking of a lie that you told today, although some of you will have no problem whatsoever. And that's because most lies are actually told by a very small number of people. And Tim calls these prolific liars. In one of his studies, he gets people to think back to how many lies they told in the last 24 hours. Most people don't tell any in the last 24 hours, almost 60%, so this straight part. The people that do tell a lie, you can see most people tell one or two, but there's some people that tell a ton, right? It could be that they're always prolific liars. We're trying to work out whether that's the case. It could be that they get into situations where they have to lie a lot, right? They're in some certain situations. Normally they don't lie a lot, but now they have to. We did this with text messaging, so we get people to look at the last 30 to 50 texts they sent to a friend, and they code each one on whether they lied or not. We see something very similar. So more people tell lies in text than in remembering, but that you get to see their lies. So there's probably a memory effect here. They get to actually see the communication here. They're trying to remember. But roughly the same pattern. Once you look at people that have told a lie in their texting, most people tell very few. And there's a couple people that when you're getting texts from them, you're probably being lied to. Okay? So this is a very common pattern, power law distribution, and it's that most people, most of the time, are being honest, which means most of the time, people you're talking to are being honest to you, but there are a few people that tell most of the lies. Okay. The third thing is one of the most important and only finding that replicates in every single deception detection study, and that is that most people believe most of what is said to them most of the time. Okay? This is more commonly known as the truth bias. As I said, in every single deception detection study, there is a truth bias observed, and it is the only effect that's observed in every study. There is no cue to deception. There is no Pinocchio's nose. No single cue repeatedly shows to reveal deception. But this truth bias does. It's very powerful, and it overwhelms almost every other aspect of any deception research. It's probably, a lot of cognitive philosophers argue, the basis of how we evolved language as humans. We use things like implicature, and without a truth bias, the belief that your partner is being a cooperative partner, language as we evolved it could not exist. So this is not like we're nice, you know, we want to trust each other. We're Canadian like me, so I believe you. No, this is like probably in our cognitive architecture, it's necessary for us to have this truth bias as a default. Okay. So we're going to take these first little bits here and bring them out over to misinformation and see what happens. So I told you truth bias is observed all the time. Most of the time you're being told the truth. Our first study on, and so I also want to show you one other thing. This is called the veracity effect. You've probably heard, and it's true, that we're pretty bad at deception detection. In almost all studies, people perform at 54%. That's the meta-analyzed rate, 54%. But it masks the operation of the truth bias. When you break it down by accuracy, okay, that's the y-axis of lies and truths, what happens is, let's say that Marty is talking to me, and she's telling the truth, and I have that truth bias going. I'm just like, true, 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 true. When she's telling the truth, I'm doing really well because I just automatically say true. But when Marty sneaks in a lie or two or whatever, I'm still saying true. And so my accuracy goes way down. And so this is called the veracity effect. And it's really, really important. The reason why it's important is because if I'm truth biased and everyone's telling me the truth, I'm in great shape, right? If people are lying to me all the time, I'm going to do really poorly, right? So this veracity effect is really important, and it's the 54% we're on average we perform a chance actually is masking a really big difference. And that's one thing we've been trying to tell misinformation researchers is you always have to look at lies and truths, misinformation, credible information separately. When you don't have a truth bias, this is what would happen. Marty would be telling me truths and lies, and I would be randomly saying truth and lie, and I do poorly on both. Clearly not good. Right, that would be the pattern. So truth bias is actually really important for human communications, you'll see. So the last thing to say is that because of the truth bias and because most of the time we're being told the truth, human communication is extremely efficient. Right now, you don't have to be being like, well, can I really trust Jeff? right? Can I really believe what he's saying? You're defaulting to believing me, and that's allowing for me to speak really quickly and for you to understand really fast. It is why human communication probably exceeds any other animal's ability to evolve language, right? Fascinating. But, of course, leaves us susceptible to deception. That's a cost that we have to pay for the efficiency of human communication. Everybody good with it so far? This is a core part of the model, so as long as you're getting it, we're in good shape.
Do you want to hear questions?
Yeah, sure, hit me.
When a person asked online, can it also be that some people didn't know they were lying? That certain people don't fact check anything they hear and just pass stuff on, so they think they're telling the truth?
Great question, and yes, I do think that's possible.
There's something very human about the way we tend to believe first and question later. We want to feel like we understand what's going on. We want to feel safe in our views. And because of that, our mind often takes a path of least resistance. If something sounds confident, if we hear it enough times, or if it comes from someone we already like or trust, we lean toward it, accepting it. This isn't because we're gullible. It's because constant verification would be exhausting. So we use shortcuts. Tone, repetition, familiarity, emotional alignment. The problem is that these shortcuts can be gamed. They don't always lead us to truth. Sometimes they just lead us to comfort. We don't usually experience it as being manipulated. We experience it as finally seeing the truth. The information aligns with what we already suspect or hoped was true. So it feels validating. And once it feels validating, we defend it. Sometimes fiercely, even when contradictions appear. This tendency doesn't belong to one side. It affects all of us. The more emotionally invested we become in a particular story, the harder it becomes to see clearly when that story has holes. We start overlooking inconvenient facts. We start explaining things away. We start treating doubt as disloyalty. The deeper cost is that truth itself becomes secondary to emotional alignment. We don't just want facts. We want confirmation. And when enough people are seeking confirmation rather than truth, shared reality starts to fracture. If we look back, we can see this pattern repeating across different times and places. During the Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 to 1899, thousands of people sold everything they owned and rushed to the Yukon, based on glowing reports and confident stories of easy riches. Many endured extreme hardship only to find most claims were already taken or produced very little gold. The repetition of success stories created a powerful wave of belief that outpaced reality. In 1990, during the dot-com bubble, investors poured money into internet companies with little revenue but strong narratives and confident projections. Shared prices soared based largely on hype and social momentum. The bubble burst dramatically in 2000 and 2002, wiping out trillions in value. In the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, complex mortgage-backed securities were given high ratings by respected agencies and sold with confident assurance of safety. Many investors and institutions accepted the assessment at face value. When the housing market collapsed, it became clear how much trust had been placed in authoritative tone rather than deeper scrutiny. These examples, separated by decades and different contexts, show the same underlying pattern. Confident delivery, social momentum, and emotional alignment can make questionable claims feel solid, until reality eventually catches up. We see this playing out all the time today. For most of human history, people turned to elders, clergy, or literate authorities for understanding because they were the ones who could read and interpret information. The average person was kept in the dark and received truth only through someone else's filter. That dependency created vulnerability. We're repeating the same pattern now, just with different idols. Instead of elders or priests, people constantly say things like, "I wonder what so-and-so thinks," or "What does X say about this?" They outsource their discernment to influencers, podcasters, or trusted voices in their chosen tribe. The filter has changed, but the habit of handing over our own thinking remains. This shows up in how quickly people adopt or defend positions because the favored voice said it first. The emotional comfort of alignment often matters more than verification. Have you ever defended something strongly only to later realize you hadn't really looked into it? Have you noticed yourself dismissing information simply because it came from the quote-unquote wrong person or group? These moments are worth noticing. They show us where our own biases might be steering the ship more than we realize. The shift starts in small, honest pauses, when we catch ourselves reacting and ask, "Am I believing this because it's well supported? Or because it feels right emotionally? Am I truly open to changing my mind if better information appears, or am I mostly protecting a narrative I've grown comfortable with?" Have you noticed how certain topics, like the debate between the heliocentric model, flat Earth ideas, and the globe Earth, can trigger such strong reactions in people? Some accept one view almost immediately because it aligns with trusted source or feels intuitively right. Others question it fiercely. It's a fascinating modern example of how truth bias can show up, where certainty often feels more important than the actual process of examination. There's a lot to sit with from everything we've explored tonight. Truth bias isn't about calling everyone a liar. It's about understanding how easily our own minds fill in the blanks with trust, repetition, and emotional comfort. The best way to be aware is about slowing down before we share or defend something. It's about getting comfortable with uncertainty instead of rushing to fill it. It's about rebuilding the habit of asking basic questions before we accept what we've been told. Small daily practices like pausing to check sources or sitting with discomfort when something doesn't add up can slowly strengthen our ability to see more clearly. Think about, why are you so willing to believe? Here on Back to Light, we are all about questioning everything with discernment, integrity, and awareness, including ourselves. So perhaps an even harder question to visit is, after everything you've seen and heard these last several years, are you seeking truth? Or mostly seeking confirmation of what you already want to believe? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments or continue the conversation with us on Telegram. The link is in the description, along with our show affiliates. Go to backtolight.live for your copy of my ebook, Liberate Your Mind, A Spiritual Declaration of Freedom. And thank you to the Back to Light crew, Carrie, our producer, Claudia, our moderator, and Todd, our songwriter. I appreciate and love you all. And to you, our listeners, thank you for opening up your mind and sharing with loved ones. The feedback has been amazing. We'll see you again next week for a deeper dive into Article 14,
opinion, fact, belief, and bias.
And remember, every story we believe shapes our reality. Stay curious and don't be afraid to question the narrative.
Only after the truth has come about, it walks into the room with lies thrown throughout. Can the minds of the sleeping and the lying about awake from their slumber to stumble on out of the mind control that placed them inside rooms of deception the human brain provides. No place for logic in these darkened rooms. Common sense lost within the vacuum of construes, leaving no hope for rescue in this lying state. Rooms piling high with just more of the same. Unless, of course, the light of truth, like the break of day, finds its way through the keyhole of night, unlocking the way, opening the door for the dawning to be saved. That's what we do in this awakening and calling, locating room keys with names stamped upon them, and that one single truth which unlocks the minds of our brothers and sisters, one room at a time. Room service for the mind, one room at a service for the mind.